Okay, today we're going to start not Samach Testament days, right? We're going to do, yes, it is Samach. We're going to do Ayin Amid Aleph. Ayin Amid Aleph, 70a. And if you go down half the page, and then you go down even further, you'll come to a line, and at least my Gemara starts with Ema. It says, V'Reb Meir, Hai Treifa Mayavidlei. If you count from the bottom, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 18. 18 lines from the bottom. Okay, we thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. And this is of our learning. I have the base of English immediately. Okay. We've been discussing here a machlekes between Reb Meir and Reb Yehuda regarding the kosher bird that gives off impurity when someone swallows it. It's called nevelas oif tahar. Special rule, just by the kosher bird. A non-kosher bird, it doesn't apply. But by a kosher bird, if someone swallows it, he becomes tamei, and his clothing becomes tamei. So we said, what happens if it's a kosher bird that died, right? Kosher bird that died. It's called nevela seif tahar. It died without shechita.
At what point?
Some point in its life, it dies.
Oh,
it just dies.
So when you get it for the sacrifice, it's already dead.
No, it's not a sacrifice here. We're just talking about nevela seif tahar. It could have been designated for a sacrifice. Whatever the case is, it died. Okay? And so then if someone takes a piece of it and eats it, it gives off tumah while he swallows it at the throat. It gives off impurity. So we were discussing over here that if there was a bird that was a treifa, a bird that was a treifa, that means it wouldn't survive. And it didn't die because it was a treifa, you shechted it. You did malika on it. One of those. So does that purify it? That now it won't give off the impurity because it was shechted or malika was done. So Meir holds that it becomes purified. It doesn't give off the impurity. And Rabbi Yehuda says that no, it gives off the impurity because he learns it from a pasuk. Actually, they both learn it from a pasuk. I just want to contrast this with an animal that's a treifa. If you shech the animal, then it does not give off impurity. Everyone agrees by the animal, even if it wouldn't survive, but you shechted it, it doesn't give off impurity. The question is by the bird, if you shecht it or do malik on it, what happens? So Reb Meir says that it becomes pure, just like the animal, and Rabbi Yehuda says this is a totally different halacha. Rabbi Yehuda gets his halacha from the word treifa. It says the word treifa, which was an extra word, is coming to teach me that even if you shechted it, it doesn't help. It's still going to give off tumah. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Now the Gemara says, Reb Meir, hi treifa mayavidlei. What does Reb Meir do with the word treifa? According to him, that if you shecht it, it becomes pure and it doesn't give off the impurity. You're not allowed to eat it. It's not kosher, right? Because it's a kosher bird, but it's a treifa. When they check the inside, they see that there's a problem there, right? He says it becomes pure.
So are you talking about it's dying and you
quickly run in and
check it before it dies?
Exactly.
Versus being already dead and checking it after it's dead?
Well, after it's dead, the shechita won't work. Here it was dying, let's say, and you shechted it. Rabbi Yehuda says, okay, now it doesn't give off the impurity. Rabbi Yehuda says it still does. Rabbi Yehuda learns it from a word in the verse that says, the word says treifa, the extra word. Where it asks, Reb Meir, according to Reb Meir, that says that it doesn't give off the impurity. So high treifa, this pasuk that says treifa, regarding the impurity of a kosher bird that dies. What does he do with that pasuk? So it says wants to tell me, the birds in the Beis Hamikdash, you're supposed to do malik on it with the fingernail. Let's say you did shchita on it. So we're saying that if you did shchita on it, it's not a kosher sacrifice. But we want to say that it's not going to be tummy. It's not considered like it died.
both like the same cleansing to the animal, Dika or the Shkita?
Each one, it depends on its place. Shchita is supposed to be on Chulin. Malika is supposed to be on Kachim. Here he did Shchita on Kachim. So the Gemara says, okay, so if you do Shchita on Kachim, to Shchita on Kachim, it's not going to give off Tumah. One second. Rashi says that we learn this from Treifa. Just like a Treifa has an equal prohibition, whether it's inside the temple or outside the temple, so to Nevela, that gives off impurity, has an equal prohibition whether it's inside the temple or outside the temple. But this excludes Shchitas Kachim Bifnim that is not equal inside and outside. And the reason is because if someone slaughters Kachim, even a bird, someone slaughters a bird outside the temple, instead of doing Malika on it, you see, the sacrifice is supposed to have Malika. It's supposed to be inside the temple. If you slaughter sacrifice outside the temple, it's a prohibition, right? Kachim b'chutz, it's a prohibition. Karas maybe, it's a serious prohibition. But if someone does instead of Malika on it, he does Shchita on it outside the temple, it's still karas. It's still karas. It's still kachim b'chutz, which tells me. But if you do Shchita inside the temple, then it's not kachim b'chutz. So you see that Shchita is not similar inside and outside. So therefore, it gets excluded and it won't give off impurity. That's how Rashi says. So we're learning here from the word treifa that it needs to be just like a treifa. Just like a treifa is equal inside outside, so too the shchita needs to be equal inside and outside, and it's not equal inside, so therefore it gets excluded. Now the Gemara asks, so what is Rabbi Yehuda that he uses the word treifa to tell me that there's going to be impurity even if it's slaughtered, right? How does he know this from? So it says treifa cheniksiv. It says an extra pasuk of treifa. It says two psukim treifa. Reb Meir, what will he do with the second word? The second time it says treifa, he doesn't need a second time. Reb Meir says that if a bird is slaughtered, it becomes pure. So he doesn't need the treifa to tell me that it's impure. But he only needs one word treifa to tell me that if it's slaughtered inside when it's not supposed to be, it does not give off impurity. What does it do with the other treifas? It says chad l'mutei shchita shilafnim, which we said, but chad l'mutei oif tamei. The other one is coming to exclude if the bird is not a kosher bird in the first place. An ostrich. You say that will not give off impurity. You hear? Interesting. Only a kosher bird that dies gives off impurity. A non-kosher bird that dies doesn't give off impurity. By the animals, we say the opposite. We say a non-kosher animal gives off impurity just like a kosher animal gives off, like that die. The bird not. The fat is a different story. Yes.
The same bird be
Yeah, if it wasn't a sacrifice outside the temple. Yeah. Only done by a Kohen, and it can only be after a sacrifice. If it's not a sacrifice and Malika is performed, then it's becomes I think a nevela actually. We had a discussion about that. If Malika it becomes nevela, it's not a sacrifice. I think we said that it does. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda, how does he know that an oif tameh will not give off impurity? Oif tameh means a non-kosher bird. This whole law of impurity of a kosher bird that died, right? Kosher bird that died, it gives off impurity. This law only applies to to a kosher bird that died, but not to a non-kosher bird. And Reb Meir learns it from the word treifa. It says next to time treifa. So, which is coming to tell me probably that only something that would be impure because of a treifa, well, only something that would become inedible because of a treifa, as opposed to something that's tummy that's inedible not because of the treifa, because it's not a kosher bird. So the non-kosher bird is excluded from these laws. Rabbi Yehuda, how does he know that? He uses the word treifa. He already used it up. Used it for his two things. One, that that if malika is done or shchita is done, it still gives off impurity. And the second of all, that if it's slaughtered inside, it doesn't give off impurity. So Rabbi Yehuda min nevela nafkale, he learns it from the word nevela, that only something that can't be eaten because of nevela, as opposed to an oiftami, which can't be eaten even with not because of nevela, because it's not kosher. Rabbi Meir, I nevela meyavidle. What does Rabbi Meir do with the word nevela? Rabbi Yehuda is using it to tell me that it excludes a non-kosher bird. And Rabbi Meir knows it from the word treifa. So what does Rabbi Meir do with the word nevela? So the Gemara answers, l'shir achila. How much bird needs to be eaten? How much of this, that's not a chicken, right? Maybe it is a chicken, kosher bird. How much of it needs to be swallowed to give off the impurity? It says kazayas. Term nevela teaches me that it needs to be a kazayas. How does nevela teach me kazayas? That just like nevela, which is prohibited to eat, is a kazayas, so too the nevela that's swallowed that gives off the impurity is a kazayas. The Gemara says v'tepakle mikrakama. Yeah, this is a measurement for impurity as well. This is not a prohibition. We're not talking about the prohibition of eating. The prohibition of eating is that we know. We're talking about the impurity that will give off if he swallows a kazayas. Gemara says, but we have another pasuk that says, any person that will eat nevela or treifa, he should wash his clothes in water. And mida afki rachmana b'lashon achila, and the pasuk says achila. And when the concept of kazayas is whenever it uses the word achila. Whenever the Torah says thou shalt not eat, it says eat, we know it's a kazayas. So over here we're saying, why do you need the word nevela, special pasuk, to teach me that it needs to be a kazayas to give off? We already said that anyone that eats the nevela or treifa, we have a pasuk, is will be tummy, and it uses the word achila. So the Gemara answers, chad l'shir achila b'kazayas, v'chad l'shir achila b'chdei achilas pras. I need an extra halacha here, that how long does he have to eat the kazayas for the impurity to come onto him? That's only if he eats the kazayas in a kedei achilas pras. Achilas pras, the word pras means like cut in half. Doesn't mean a prize. In modern Hebrew, pras means a prize, right? Like in English, prize. But achilas pras would mean half a loaf of bread. How big is a loaf of bread? Machlekes, if it's 6 eggs or 8 eggs, so half a loaf would be either 4 eggs or 3 eggs. Machlekes, I think Rashi and the Rambam. But a flour, I'm switching that to eggs, flour size, egg sizes of flour. So so the amount of time it takes to eat this half a loaf of bread, which is maybe 3-4 minutes or something. So that's how long the impurity. That's how long he has to eat this non-acceptable bird, kosher bird, but not shechted, for him to become tummy. Yeah, same time we have for Pesach for the matzah. Yeah.
Didn't we learn this at length? Maybe it was in Kulin, and it was a smaller amount. Remember, we learned how much of the flesh you needed to eat versus how much of the bone to become tummy.
Yeah,
Wasn't
that
it
was
that was what?
By Aver Menachai.
Oh, Aver Menachai.
By Aver Menachai, yeah. That you didn't need to swallow the whole Aver as long as it was an Aver. Yeah, that was the interesting piece. But very good. That's about 7 years ago. Okay. Sal kadai. What do you eat for breakfast? Sal kadai tchamina hayal v'chidushu. I could have thought that this should be different than everything else because this is a chiddush. The chiddush is that it gives off impurity through swallowing. Well, this is like very unique. So I could have thought that even if it's more than kedei achilas pras, it also should give off impurity, right? Because it's a chiddush. It's a chiddush. A chiddush. It's a novelty. That means that it doesn't. The regular rules maybe don't apply. Maybe it's more stricter. So Kamash Milan comes to tell me the extra time. It says nevela. Okay. That it's only a kazayas in a chedei achilas pras will give with impurity. Okay, we start a new brisa. That was yesterday's Gemara, which I wanted to finish yesterday because you have to go back over every detail to get this little piece. Tana Rabbanan. We're not 100% done with the topic. Okay, we mentioned in passing, also chaylev. The interesting thing, chaylev is forbidden fat. We said that forbidden fat, of course, you're not allowed to eat it, it's forbidden. But when the animal dies and the animal gives off impurity, right? We're talking about an animal now, not a bird. The animal gives off impurity. The fat does not give off the impurity. It's only the flesh of the animal that gives off the impurity, not the fat. It says you can't eat it, but you can do with it whatever you need. Like candles, yeah, you can use it for candles. To smear on
the shuman too.
On to keep your shoes fresh on leather. I would put oil on leather. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. It was taught in a brisa. The brisa quotes a pasuk. It says v'chelav nevela, chelav treifa. You can do any work with it, but you cannot eat it. Which means you can do any work with it is an expression to tell me that it doesn't give off impurity. V'chelav behema Torah kasav medaber. We're talking about kosher animals that it doesn't give off impurity. Maybe not. Maybe it's talking about chaylev of a non-kosher animal. We know that a non-kosher animal that dies gives off impurity also. Maybe the chaylev should not give off impurity. Amrit. So we say like this. Tier miklal shchuta. If the animal gets shechted, then it's not considered a nevela, right? It doesn't tear, it purifies it. V'tier meklal chaylev. No, 1 second. Yeah, that's what's about to happen. And it also, nevela, purified, when it dies, it's purified because it's chaylev. That's interesting. The meklal shchuta is that the shchita purifies it, and also the chaylev purifies it. So now we have to continue on and explain the two things that we just got. How does it get purified? Getting shechted purifies it, or if it's chaylev, it purifies it. So just like what purifies an animal when it's shechted, what animal gets purified when it's shechted? Only a kosher animal, not a non-kosher animal. You shecht the pig, doesn't change its status, right? It's still going to give off impurity. Just like it got killed or like shot or it got roadkill. So also when the chaylev purifies it, because the chaylev isn't impure, it's only by a kosher animal and not by a non-kosher animal. That's good logic, right? How does something become purified? Shchita or chaylev. Shchita is only by the kosher animal. Chaylev is also only by the kosher animal. Go away from this path. We have a different approach. Tier miklal nevela. There's a possibility. Now, the Gemara is going to be confused about this later, and the Gemara is going to figure it out. But it says that it's purified because of a nevela. There's something that gets purified because it's a nevela. There's something that gets purified when it's a nevela. What gets purified when it's a nevela? Now, the Gemara is going to be a little confused about this, but ultimately, the Gemara is going to tell us that it's talking about a non-kosher bird doesn't become tameh when it dies. It's only the kosher bird that gets tameh. Anyway, so now we're talking about there's something that gets pure when it dies. When it dies, right? And tier miklal chaylev. And there's something that gets purified when it's chaylev. Okay? So ma kishetiyah machal nevela b'tmeya v'lei b'tayra. Well, how does it become purified by nevela when it's impure? Only when it's impure, not when it's pure. When it's a kosher bird that dies, is impure. The non-kosher bird is pure. So just like, how does it become pure? Through dying, because it's non-kosher. So maybe we should say the opposite. We should say that by chelav also, the only thing that it purifies is the non-kosher. Exactly the opposite of what we're talking about. The Gemara says, Amrit, 1 second. If you learn it the first way, then we're dealing with kosher animals. If you learn it this way, we're dealing with non-kosher animals. So Talmud Loimar, so therefore when the pasuk says treifa, it's coming to teach me mi sheyesh b'mina treifa. Talking about something that has treifa in its status. That means that treifa would make a difference. It means we're dealing with a kosher animal. The non-kosher animal, it doesn't matter if it's a treifa. So therefore we're dealing with the kosher animal. So where does the laws of chelev not becoming impure with the impurity of nevela? That's only by the kosher animal. Gemara asks, maybe you're only excluding the non-kosher animal, but you're not excluding the wild animal. Remember, we mentioned that the wild animal doesn't have the laws of chelev. And if that's the case, like a deer, for example, it's permissible to eat the fat of the deer. So if that's the case, we should say when a deer dies, a deer dies. The animal gives off impurity of nevela, and the fat that's in the deer also gives off the impurity of nevela, because the fat was permissible. It's only the fat of a regular animal that doesn't give off the impurity of nevela. So what about a deer? Maybe we shouldn't be excluded. Right now we only excluded the right now we're saying that a kosher animal, the chelev is not impure. A non-kosher animal, the chelev is tamei. What about a deer? So it says Talmud Laimar that you can't eat it, which means mishachel basar b'sar mutar. I'm looking for something that the chelev is prohibited to eat, but the flesh is permissible. Yatzachaya shechel b'sar mutar. A chaya is excluded automatically because a chaya, the fat is permissible to eat, and the fat is permissible to eat. So therefore, if a chaya dies, the fat gives off impurity. Amalei Reb Yaakov bar Abba L'Rava. Yeah, what's the problem?
They see that the meat was a regular, like cow, that the meat is permitted and the fat is not. No?
Exactly. It's only a regular cow that dies that the meat is. Normally, when you shecht an animal, the meat is permissible. The fat is not. Now it dies without shechita. The meat gives off impurity, and the fat does not give off impurity. When it comes to a deer, you shech the deer, you can eat the meat and the fat. So now if it dies without shechita, both the meat and the fat give off impurity. Right? So Amalei Rabbi Yaakov bar Abba L'Rava, Rabbi Yaakov bar Abba says to Rabbi Elmiyata, this is the case, that it's only the kosher animal that has this impurity, that the chelev is going to be tahar. Nevelas behema tahira hu de mitama, nevelas behema tmei lei mitama. Oh, no. Okay, this is where the Gemara goes back to figure out what we were talking about. We said before that a kosher animal. Dr. Stein just walked in. The halo around them from Eretz Yisrael.
I found out I am so stupid. I can't
Don't
tell
say
you
that out
so
loud.
many mistakes. I mean, I never realized our Rav Meir that we keep on talking about is the same Rav Meir Balanese.
Yeah.
So I'm there saying, "Whoa, this holy guy, Rav Meir," and I'm reading the story. Bruya. Wait a minute, Bruya's married to Reb Meir and the Tanaim. There's things like that. It's like awakenings I had.
Everything's big.
Yeah, then you daven there. So I'm starting to daven east. Jay Berger turns me and says, "No, you're south of whatever you saw."
Yeah, you got to turn around.
Every time I'm in a different place, I'm turning around. The other thing, saying bracha.
Oh,
no, it's down. So, it's like.
Yeah. So you have to. Do you still say the same Talamat
We're
L'Rocha?
saying it now.
Now you're gonna say it quietly. You don't daven for the Amud. When you come back here,
I switched it back in my sitter.
Oh, I'm not sure if you switch back. Ask
Find
Rabbi
out,
Marlow.
let me know.
Yeah. Anyone know? When you in Eretz Yisrael and you're saying the same Talamatar before December 4th, they switch from Zion Cheshvan. I think when you come back, I think you continue quietly in your silent Shemar. I'm not sure. Okay.
Check on that, please. And by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what you just said, where Naphtali, I asked I thought when we learned by Eva Minachai, it was also only paid the whole Eva, not the little piece of meat, which was the distinction between what we're learning now and Eva Minachai.
Let's wait till we get there.
Okay.
Let's see.
I don't even know
Okay.
what you're talking about.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry. So now what we're saying is that one of the things we mentioned before, one of the possibilities with the chaylev, we could have said that maybe it's referring specifically to a non-kosher animal, not to the kosher animal. Because we said there's a non-kosher animal purifies something, but the kosher animal makes it tameh. So it says, what are you talking about? Nevelas behema tahira hu de metama? Nevelas behema tmei lay metama? If an animal dies, only if it's a kosher animal it becomes a nevela. If it's a non-kosher animal, it's not a nevela. Amarlei. So Rava responds to Rabbi Yaakov bar Abba, Kama Sabi Shabishtuba. There's so many elders that didn't understand this brisa. Seifa, that brisa that we were talking about, Asan Lenavela Seif Tameh, was talking about a bird, which is correct. That when a kosher bird dies, it gives off impurity, but a non-kosher bird doesn't give off impurity. Okay, we explained that at the beginning, based on the Gemara's Teretz. Rabbi Yechanan says, Leitia Reb Meir Ela B'Tmimim. Reb Meir says that if a bird is treifa and malika was done on it, so then it doesn't give off impurity. It's not an avela seiftar. It's not an avela because malika was done. That's Reb Meir's opinion, as opposed to Reb Yehuda that says that it's
the first cut with the nail, right?
Yeah.
What about the second cut in the back? It doesn't.
We're going to get to that in a moment.
Sorry.
So Reb Meir says that this only purifies the animal, the malika, but only purify it if it doesn't have a mum. It's interesting because we're confusing treifa with mum. Treifa means that it wouldn't survive. A mum means that it's like missing a limb or something. Aval bali mumim, loy. If it's a bal mum, then it's not going to be purified just because you shechted it or did malika on it. Rabbi Lezer ben Padas. Yeah, he's arguing with Rabbi Yechanan. That's Rabbi Yechanan's friend, Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer says, Afilu b'bali mum. Rabbi Meir says it doesn't matter if it's a treifa and malika was done, same as with the bal mum. What's the difference? If it's inside, it has a hole in the intestines, or if it's or if the lung got punctured, or if outside it's missing a leg, the same thing. What does that make a difference? If the shchita, if the malika purifies it, so what's the difference? Both of them, when you open it up, you can't eat it. When you're done, you can't eat it. So why? That's Rabbi Lazar's. It's Manami. Amar Bibi. Amar Rabbi Lazar. Not only is Rabbi Meir mitahar by bali mumim, but even if the malika was performed on a chicken or a goose, right? Avazim or geese. It would also be that's like a massive mum. It even got the wrong animal. You never bring chickens on the altar. You only bring doves and turtle doves, right? So that's what Bibi says that Rabbi Lazar would hold. If Rabbi Meir says that it's pure by a balmum, it would even apply to the wrong animal. By Rabbi Yirmiyah has a question. Or if mahu, let's say they had to bring an egla rufa. Egla rufa is not a sacrifice. It's an animal that's brought down to the valley if someone died between cities, And the elders, they measure which city it's closest to, and then the elders come from that city and they say, our hands did not shed this blood, and they break the back of the neck of the calf. It's supposed to be a calf. So that's what the Gemara is going to
Why
discuss.
does it say goat here?
So Dr. Stein and the Gemara have the following question. Let's say instead of using the calf, he used the goat. Okay? He used the goat. He used the wrong animal. Why are we're bringing this in? Because Rabbi Bibi just mentioned that Rabbi Elazar would hold that it gets purified even if you use the wrong animal. So what happened if you do the arifa, the breaking of the neck on the wrong animal? You used a... So Rabbi Yirmiyah has this question.
The
Would it
Quran
help?
here,
Yeah.
the
Tell
Quran
me.
here says this all machlokas as to what Rabbi Meir holds. That even Rabbi Elazar is only talking about what Rabbi Meir holds.
Yeah. Because Rabbi Yehuda holds that anything that's a treifa, it doesn't get purified. It's always tummy. It's considered nevela automatically. Rabbi Meir is the one that says that if you shecht it, it takes away the tumah. If you do malik on it, takes away the tumah. Now the question is will Rabbi Meir say the same thing that he says it by a treifa? Will he say it even if there's a balmum, or even if you use the wrong animal and you do malik on it? What will happen then? Now Rabbi Yirmiyah is coming in, according to Rabbi Elazar, that says that Rabbi Meir holds this. What would he say? Even the wrong animal, even the wrong bird. What will he say if it's arifas egla arufa and you used not an egla, but not an egla is a young cow? Use a goat. Yeah. What's the reason why we say that chickens and geese, they don't become impure even if malika is done on them? The mina daifus, it's a type of bird. Abalez lav mina deglu. But 1 second. But a goat is not a type of cow. Or maybe mina de behemo. It is a type. It's the same thing. It's a min gevix, right? Remember that Yiddish mishnayos. And when you learn the Mishnayos in Zraim, it has all of these types of herbs and things that you grow this together with that. And it's like so many herbs that we have no idea what. So the Yiddish Mishnayos says, Amin Gevix. It doesn't even try to translate it. It's some type of growth. So it says, it's all the same. It's all an animal. Amin Behema. It's a type of animal. It's a difference. A cow, a goat. Right.
In the definitions, it said bull, goat, or sheep.
Right, exactly.
I guess that means calf.
A bull is a cow. A bull is a cow, and a young cow is a.
So where it says
is a calf.
The calf qualifies.
The calf is the young cow that we're using for the egg barufa. This person came, or this community, they took a goat instead of a calf, and they broke the back of the neck. Now the question is, does it give off the impurity of a regular dead animal, or was there the procedure that's supposed to be done to it purifies it, right? So the Gemara says, 1 second. Okay, Yasser Rav Dimi Kamal Ashmaita. Rav Dimi asked, it was sitting, and he says over this question of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Amalei Abaya. Abaya says, and this was, I think, in everyone's mind. I was trying to get to this quick before anyone asked it. It says, Michlal Degla Rufa Tairi. You're trying to tell me that an egla rufa is tar. You break the back of the neck. Maybe it's not even tar. Who told you that it's tar when you break the back of the neck? Right? It's a dead animal.
We don't eat the egg.
You don't eat it. Of course you don't eat it. Right. The question is, what happens if you touch it? Amalei, so responds in, it is tar. Amr debei Rabbi Yanai kapara but it says, the yeshiva Rabbi Yanai taught, it says kapara by it. Kachim, just like a sacrifice, which means that it's going to be pure. Kapara, an atonement. Masiv Rav Nassan Avuad Rav Huna Bar Nassan, the father of Rav Huna Bar Nassan, which, by the way, his name is Rav Nassan, right? That's why the son's name is Rav Huna Bar Nassan. So he asked the following question. The pasuk says that the chelav of nevela, it says you can do with it any work, but you can't eat it. It says you can do work with it. What type of chelav is pure? Chelav that you can do work with it. Okay.
Was it like grease the machinery?
Yeah. Chaylev shel shara niskal ve'egla rufa. How do you know minayin? How do you know that the chaylev of a shara niskal? It says yeyasel l'chol malacha. It says you can do any work with it. 1 second. A shara niskal, an ox that gored a man, that killed a man, you can't do work with it. It becomes asur b'hana. An egla rufa, we know is asur b'hana. You can't do anything with the egla rufa. So how do you know that that also becomes pure, even though half the pasuk doesn't apply? It says you can do work with it. How do you know it becomes? Tamalei kol chaylev. You have an inclusion of the word kol that even though it's missing half the context, nevertheless it includes that chaylev. Isal kadai tegla rufa ta'irahi. If you say that it's tahar, the egla rufa becomes pure. So what happens over here? He tahira v'chel batame. 1 second. I have a pasuk that tells me that the chaylev of an egla rufa is tahar. I wouldn't know that it's tahar. Now, why do I need a pasuk to tell me that? Because I could have thought that the chaylev should be tamei, right? I need a pasuk to tell me the chaylev is tahar. This is 1 second. According to Rabbi Yirmiyah's question, and according to Rav Dimi, according to Abaya, or Bei Rabbi Yanai, that says that the egla rufa, after it's done, the animal is tar. So what's going on over here? If you break the back of the neck, the animal becomes tar, right? Because it's as if it's shchita. But I had a thought that maybe the chaylev should be tamei. I have a pasuk that says, no, don't worry, the chaylev is tar. It's just like other chaylev that's tar. So 1 second. The animal should be tahar, and the chaylev you thought maybe would be tamei. It's never like that. It's always the animal is tamei and the chaylev is tar. That's normally what happens in the pasuk. Pasuk says if an animal dies, the animal is tamei, it's nevela, but the chaylev is not tamei. The chaylev is tar. Here we're telling me that the animal is going to be tar because you told me that an egla rufa, after you break the neck, the animal is pure. But then you want to tell me that the chaylev, I need a special limud to tell me that even though you can't do anything with the chaylev, it's still tar. I could have thought it was tamei. The whole animal is tar, right? That's what we said. So the Gemara answers, Heicha the araf miaraf leitzrichalei. We're talking about over here, if you did actually you broke the neck, then you're right, you don't need the pasuk to tell me that, because the whole thing is tar. We're talking about where you didn't do it right, where you shechted it instead of breaking the neck. If you did shchita on the egla rufa, then we're going to consider it tamei. And nevertheless, see, it's interesting over here. The egla rufa becomes asur b'hana even before the neck is broken. So now we have a problem. If it dies, then, and it's asur b'hana, so will the fat be tahar? It's only things that you can use the fat that the fat is tar. But here, the fat you can't use because it's already asur b'hana. So I have a special pasuk, kol chaylev, to include that it's still going to be tar. So we're saying now is that if you didn't do the arifa, you didn't break the neck from the back, maybe you should say that the fat should not be tar because it's asur b'hana. It says kamashmal and kol chaylev that it's asur b'hana. But I don't need this pasuk if you did it properly, if you did the arifa on it. Okay. The Gemara asks, if you did shchita, then it should be tar anyway, because remember, shchita would make it not an avela. So it says, so we're talking about not shchita. We meant that it died. Okay. Talking about, I sort of explained it with this, and that it died, and it's asur b'hana. I could have thought that maybe the fat should be tamei, kamashman kol chaylev, that it's going to be tar. Miklal de Michayim Asura. Gemara says that this implies that the Egla Rufa is already Asr Bana even while it's alive, even before you did the Arifa. And when it says in, yeah, that's true. Rabbi Yanai Gvul Shamati. Rabbi Yanai says that I heard the limit. V'shachachti, but I forgot what it is. When does it become Asr? V'nas ben Chavraya L'meimar, but the Talmidim, the friends, the Chavraya, the Chevra, the Chavayrim. They explained it that Yeridas Nachal Eisen Hiyasaita, that bringing it down to the river, that makes it Asr, even before any procedures are done. It's already Asr once it's brought down to the valley. Okay.
Why do they call that hard?
It has to be a hard valley because it can't be a valley that the soil was tilled. It has to be never been tilled. So we call it hard.
In between.
Let's start the next.
These are all special rules just for the Egla Arufa.
Yeah, but we're learning that the Egla Rufa, we learned over here so far that the Egla Rufa is Asr Bana even before the neck is broken.
Which is an unusual idea, right?
Right.
With a normal cow, it's fine until it's shechted. I mean, the cow is a cow.
You have to view it differently. You have to view an Egla Rufa like a Shara Niskal. It's like an animal that gored and killed a man, that it becomes Asr Bana.
Even though the Egla Rufa didn't. The Egla Rufa, its only avera was that it was designated.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Okay. We have a new parak. Change the topic. This is more associated with the laws of bittul. Just remember the sugyas in Kuf Yud and Rav Naftali. It's the complicated halachas about how things are batal and how things get nullified. So this is the classic Mishnah that starts this off. It says Kol Zavachim Kol Zavachim is the 8th parak. All sacrifices, all regular sacrifice animals, right? We're learning Maseches Zavachim. So now we're talking about animals that are supposed to be brought as sacrifices. However, Shenasarva b'chatayis amesis, that got mixed up with other animals. You know, the kids are going to know which animal is which. They have their pet. They'll give names to the different pets and animals. But the farmer, I don't know, he has an animal that he designated as a sacrifice, and he has other animals that are called chatois amesis. Chatois amesis are chata, sin offerings, that there's nothing you can do with them. They're just going to have to die. Why is this? Well, the owner of the chatas passed away, and so you can't bring it anymore, this sin offering, because there's no owner. Or maybe it's the chatas is a female animal, so maybe it gave birth to another animal, and now the offspring of the mother is also considered a chatas, but I have no one to bring it for, so that also you leave it to die. Or maybe the owner lost his chatas, he designated another one, then he found this one, right? So, but he doesn't have what to bring it, so you leave it to, basically there's 5 chatas. So if a sacrifice gets mixed up with a chatas amazing, you can't tell which one is which. Which one's the one that's supposed to die, which one you're supposed to bring. Oy b'shara niskal. Or it gets mixed up with an ox that gored and killed a man. We said that's asr bana, right? Afilu achas beriba, even if it's one chatois amesis with 1,000 other animals, right? Yemusukulam, they all have to die. We don't say bittul, we don't say nullification. Usually say 1 in 60, 1 in 100, 1 in 200, 1 in 1,000. There's even a concept. It's not 1,000. 1 in 996, I think. No, 1 in 960, 1 in 960, I think is that, right? It was a type of bittul of the beria. There was a concept. Anyway, we don't say that it's batal ever, and that Gemara is going to explain because it's because of the chashivas of being a live animal. We're not going to say it doesn't become batal. Nisarvu b'shar shenevda b'avera. Let's say it got mixed up with the animals that are not eligible for sacrifices. For example, the animal an avera was performed with it. Shemus es adam, or it's an animal that killed a man, and it wasn't a shara niskal because it was only al pi edecher, al pi bailim. We didn't have the two witnesses there to have the animal killed. But nevertheless, it's not eligible to be a sacrifice. It's not eligible. So we're talking about sacrifices that mixed up with animals that aren't eligible. Beroiva, if it was an animal that lived with a man, or a man lived, Roivas lived with a man, or a nirba, or a man lived with this animal, and it was only with one witness, or the owner maybe himself admitted. The mukta, if it was designated to be offered as to an avodah zarah, Aristotle.
Was it Aristotle?
The Nevad,
Can you use that word muksa on when it doesn't apply to when it's not Shabbos
yeah, it's
or a holiday?
yeah. Mukta just means designated. On Shabbos, the word mukta means that it's designated for not use, like your car keys, like designated for not designated out. But mukta by avodah zarah is if you designate an animal to be used for avodah zarah sacrifice. It's called mukta. It's the Hebrew word for designation. So the nevad, or if it was worshipped, actually worshipped, someone bowed down to it, and it was his own animal that he bowed down. The esnan, it was used as a payment to a harlot. Mechir, it was exchanged for a dog. All of these are not allowed to be used for sacrifice. The kalayim, if it's a crossbreed, it's
We don't say dressmaker here. It's a family.
or it's a crossbreed between a sheep and a goat. A betrefa, or the animal's a treifa, b'yetzedaifen. And you listen to this: an animal that was born as a cesarean, C-section, cannot be used as a sacrifice. So all of these animals, Yiro, Adshi, Stavu, you have to let them graze until they get a mum, and then you sell them. Then it's not a problem. What you do is like this. I had a sacrifice here that was supposed to be brought as a sacrifice. I can't bring it because I don't know if it's going to be the other animal. I can't say bring them all as sacrifices because there's an animal here I can't bring as a sacrifice. So what I do is I let them get a mum, and then I redeem it. And with the highest price of whichever one of these animals is in there, I use that money from that animal to buy a new sacrifice, and that's the animal that gets. So in other words, the holiness of the sacrifice goes off onto the money, and then it goes back onto a new animal. It's fine, but you can only do that once it has a mum. Let's say it gets mixed up with regular mundane animals. Now I would like to have barbecue, but I can't because there's a sacrifice in there. I don't know which one is which. So what you do is you have to sell. You say, I'm opening up a shop for oilas. Anyone need an oila? And then all those animals you just sell to people that need oilas. And with that money, you're able to buy your own things, but you also have to designate the one oila that you had mixed in over there. You have to designate the best one. Okay, let's start here. Kachim bekachim min beminai. If it was an oila got mixed in with other oilas, that's not a problem. You say you bring all the sacrifice. You say this should be for Ruvain if it's for Ruvain, or for Shimon, and you bring them all as oilas.
I'm sorry.
Kachim bekachim min
You just jumped over that.
yeah.
When you sell all the things at various prices, when you buy a new one, you have to pay for the highest possible price.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Kachim bekachim min b'sheini mini. Let's say oilas got mixed in with shlamim. This is a problem because everything is done differently. Then also over here you have to get a mum. Because I had in this mixture, I had the best animal, and then I had a second best animal. And I don't know which one was the oila, which one was the shlamim. So you have to use the best animal for the oila and the best animal price for the shlamim. Where do you get the extra money from? You have to take it from your house. Nisarvu b'bechar b'maiser. Let's say a carbon got mixed in with a bechar and a maiser carbon, which can't be redeemed. You wait till they get a mum, and they eat it as a bechar and maiser. And what do? You have to bring another sacrifice with the money. Hakol yichaylim le'sarev. All animals could be confused. Chutz min achatas v'asham, where they never get confused. A sin offering and a guilt offering, because a sin offering is a female and a guilt offering is a male. You don't have to worry about them getting confused. Those are automatically separated. Okay, let's leave it to Gemara. Okay.
Where are we stopping?
I stopped at the Gemara on Ayin Aleph. I think I'm only a page behind.
Yeah. Next few pages are real small, so.
Didn't I hear you say that